Hello friends, welcome to another belated video from my series Quick Thoughts On, in which I always talk about different stories from the rich Star Trek universe. Last week, actually almost 2 weeks ago, the next episode of Star Trek Lower Decks premiered. It was called Much Ado About Boimler, and these are my honest opinions about it. Well, this episode was a very pleasant surprise. To be honest, the last couple of episodes were not really funny, but at least they were solid sci-fi stories. This episode kind of reminds me on the last seasons of Futurama, honestly. There are again multiple storylines, 3 to be more precise. The captain, the first officer and the security officer are off the ship to some stupid side mission. I won't talk about it anymore unless necessary because it's absolutely pointless. But the fact that the 3 main officers are off the ship means that other officers will take their place, right? Well, no, of course not. They will be getting a babysitter captain. When the second captain arrives with her crew, we see that the second captain is another black woman. Well, if you expect men in positions of power who could be taken seriously, you come from the wrong century. Hollywood is now in full feminist mode, and we have to adapt. Anyway, this second black woman even has the same personality as Mariner. Basically, the main difference is that this new captain has a British accent, or at least I think it's a British accent, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. And guess what? She and Mariner are old friends, because of course they are. So in this storyline we see Mariner screwing up constantly, and we see that she never really grew up, unlike her friend who is now the captain. The third plot line is actually the best one. We first see Tandy, the 25% different Orion woman, and she introduces us to the dog. Because Hollywood is in full feminist mode, we can't have normal Orion women who rule over men using their attractiveness and their pheromones. No, we must have green goddess who can create a life form out of nothing. She has constructed the dog. See, this is why so many people have problems with this type of characters. They are just too perfect. They have no real problems, they have no struggles. Whatever they do, they are immediately perfect at it, and of course they can do whatever they want and face no consequences. And no, Tony, I am not saying things like this because I hate women, as you always repeat. I am saying these things because I hate poorly written women. So she is God, or goddess, because she created life, but it's not a normal dog. As soon as his creator lets him alone, or lets her alone, with the other people, the dog, which is of course female, turns basically into a demon and starts to climb on the ceiling. This is a running gag in this plotline, the dog doing things like this and Boimler freaking out, and unlike in the previous episodes, this running gag is pretty damn funny. Brett tries to impress the new captain somehow, so he decides to assist Rutherford. Rutherford is working on the transporter. He wants to improve the speed of the beaming process somehow, but he needs a guinea pig to test it if his changes were successful. Boimler lets himself beam from one chamber to another and back, but there's a little problem. He is quote-unquote phasing. To be honest, when I've seen the trailer I was afraid that they will make him a ghost or something equally dumb, but this actually works as a Star Trek idea. We have had over the years many different transporter accidents. This one didn't seem too far-fetched. So, we have 3 plot lines. The first plot line is about the main 3 officers being off the ship. I don't care, let's ignore it. The second plotline deals with Mariner and her captain friend The captain friend is trying to get Mariner to her crew, so Mariner tries to intentionally screw up everything. They do a little dumb mission, after which they go to the real mission, saving a starship which looks abandoned and is without power. A ship which is of course commanded by a woman. This time the woman is white, and of course she's less competent than Mariner or her friend. We have an alien inside of their ship. They have switched the power off intentionally, because it feeds on power. Unfortunately, the new people turn the power on, so the alien starts ripping the ship apart. But thankfully, Mariner saves the day, and Rutherford beams all survivors back to the Cerritos. And they all were phasing, but it's not important, they are alive. So the third plot is the best one, as I said. The cat monster who serves as the doctor on the ship called the Special Agents to solve both Brad and the dog. They should come and take them to a wonderful facility nicknamed the Farm. So Brad takes it as a vacation, but when the ship arrives to pick them up, Brad realizes that the agents have a dark secret. The ship is full of mutants and other freaks. Their quote-unquote leader, who is half old man and half a baby, introduces them to everybody, and when they gain their trust, he introduces them to their plan. They plan a mutiny. They think that the farm doesn't exist, or in other words, that the ship is the farm, and they want to overtake the ship and find a world which will accept them for who they are. So what does Brad do? He immediately goes to report it to the agent, who is by the way the same race as Lieutenant Eric's from Star Trek the Animated Series. I think it's the very first time we have seen his race since the 70s, so the agent/captain has a completely logical and reasonable reaction to this. He freaks out, stops the mutiny before it happens, and tells everybody that Boimler is the one who snitched. So of course Brad Boimler is now being hunted by the rest of the freaks. He tries to hide himself in the airlock, but he later realizes that he's in a trap. The freaks of course catch him and decide to jettison him. Brad stops phasing and becomes a fully solid man again. The leader of the freaks congratulates him, but still decides to eject him. So he blows him up to space, and they have actually landed. They landed on the farm. So yeah, I'm confused. I thought that this will be another one of the Starfleet bad episodes, but no, they just had them on board for months only to bring them to this paradise. Why did they fly for months in space? I don't really know, but again, this is a combination of Risa and paradise. Tandy says goodbye to her dog, who is by the way called the dog, and only after Brad tells her that normal dogs don't change their form, speak, fly, or throw thunderbolts, and realizes that she had no clue what an actual dog is. But Brad gets kicked out of this paradise because he's no longer a freak. We have a little coda in the end on board of the Cerritos. The first officer got back already, and he wants to talk to Mariner and her captain friend, and she throws him on the table, because this is a normal reaction and definitely not something only a psychopath would do. But it was definitely his fault. He wanted to talk to her. Such a horrible crime. He needs to be punished, preferably with the death penalty. And him being assaulted is hilarious, I guess. The new Star Trek shows are written for people, by people who don't like or understand Star Trek. And Lower Decks is no different. So if you still expect this will turn into a proper Star Trek show, this will never happen under Kurtzman's regime. To me it means one thing. I stopped trying to think about it as a Star Trek show, instead I rate it just as its own thing, because even though they try to persuade us that this is a Star Trek show by throwing dozens of references thus in every single episode. The truth is that this is Star Trek in name only. So does it hold up as its own thing? I think yes, absolutely. When you accept the fact that this show, just like Discovery and Picard, has a very strong anti-male, pro-female message, I think you will like this show. I think you will at least like this episode. As I said in the beginning, it felt like I'm watching a Futurama episode from one of the weaker last seasons, when they stopped trying. The third plotline is genuinely good, and it even felt slightly as a Star Trek story. At least in the end, when we found out that the farm actually exists and they are going there. On my standard scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is absolute garbage, 10 is a masterpiece, and 5 is just average, I would give this episode 7 out of 10. But as always, these were just my opinions. Let me know what did you think about this episode. Did you love it, hate it, or agree with my above average rating? Let me know down in the comment section, and see you very soon, hopefully tomorrow. Bye!